Good morning, students and fellow colleagues. As you have been made aware, this presentation is specifically on the application of Turnitin and how it is currently utilized. The focus of this presentation is specifically from the student perspective and how you as a student would experience the current Turnitin space within UNISA. From the title slide, you can see that M&D students are still within an interim class. We have hosted you in a temporary space while the Turnitin moves into a new platform at UNISA. But I will elaborate on that further down the line. Okay, so first and foremost, Turnitin is an originality checking system. And to understand originality checking, you need to know what the stance is that your university has on plagiarism. Very important, UNISA does not tolerate plagiarism. You can consult the various policies online that are available. If you have read the policies before, please refresh your memories and go back, read the latest version of the policy on copyright, on plagiarism and copyright infringement, and the academic integrity policy. Also be aware of M&D procedures and the rules of conduct for students. So you can find all of this information online. So what is plagiarism? Now, from the Turnitin desk side, we rely on the Merriam-Webster's online dictionary of what it means to plagiarize. We have found this definition to cover all different aspects of our content that might be considered as plagiarism. Plagiarism is not just to steal and pass off another's person's ideas or words as your own, or to use another's production without crediting the source. It includes things like literary theft, and also when you present something as new and original, or a product derived from an existing source. It would suffice to say that plagiarism is a false representation of the origin of the work. You can also read a little bit more in this regard on the site plagiarism.org. So Turnitin. Turnitin is a teaching tool. Okay. It is there to prevent plagiarism by checking originality. UNISA wishes to guard against both real and inadvertent plagiarism, and this is to build academic integrity, and therefore we encourage originality in the content of the submissions, and that is what lends the value to the qualification and to the institution is academic integrity. Without that, the institution will not hold any value for its stakeholders. Before I continue, I need to offer a warning, and this is a warning of protection. This is to remind you that when you submit your work, especially when originality checking is involved, that you use your My Life email address only. You need to upload your work yourself in the formal UNISA submission space, which was allocated for this specific purpose. This means you are not going to give your proposal or your chapter to your supervisor, the librarian, the teaching assistant, a family member, or a friend or a colleague to upload on your behalf. You upload your work yourself within the formal space. And this is where we are able to verify your authorship, and we can also protect your intellectual property within that specific space. Be very, very careful of the individuals out there that promote so-called Turnitin services and say that they will generate a report on your behalf, or they will provide you with a very good report. These people are often paper mills in disguise. In other words, they steal your work and then they resell it to other individuals. And it compromises the final originality check that is done at the institution, and that can be to your personal detriment. Therefore, this warning is in order to protect you, to ensure that we can safeguard your work in the best possible way. So on that heavy note, let's continue on how we activate the Turnitin. As a registered UNISA MOD student, you are automatically enrolled within the formal UNISA Turnitin. Okay, so you do not need to request it. Also note that it doesn't mean that you are going to utilize Turnitin for every single thing. I have here in mind coursework master students. You might only need to do Turnitin for your mini dissertation. It might not be necessary for every module where you might need to submit various tasks. Okay. You have to make sure that your MyLife email account is active. This is how we communicate with you. This is the formal communication method of UNISA. And with regards to Turnitin, this is the only communication method we use, because we do have to ensure that we are speaking to the correct person, we're communicating with the correct person, because your profiles within Turnitin are confidential. When you are placed within the formal submission space at UNISA, you will receive an email with confirmation regarding those details. You do not need any program installation, none whatsoever. You do not need to buy your licenses. You do not need to create any accounts. We do all of that for you, and we send a confirmation to you when you are allocated within the formal space. Okay. Students, your file uploads, the whole process on how you would submit on Turnitin, how you would view your originality reports. These are listed as questions in a frequently asked questions list specifically for M&Ds. I would just like to remind everybody in attendance that we are in a transition phase and we are currently working on different platforms. So we endeavored to create a special frequently asked questions list for each group. So if you are an M or a D student, then make sure that the frequently asked questions list that you do consult is the one for M and D students. Okay, so this question list, it contains 28 questions, and it will guide you on how to log in, how to submit your work, how to view your originality report, and a few other details as well. And very important to know is that when you submit within the UNISA Turnitin, your work is protected within the current account. In other words, it means that when we receive your work, it is protected through Turnitin and helps to guard against any possible future plagiarism from your work. So you put in the effort and you deliver this product, this qualification that you've worked very hard for. So you do not want somebody else to go in future times and try and steal your work and pass it off as their own. So therefore, within the formal space, every effort possible is made to protect your work therein. When you upload, you are going to upload an all-inclusive document because UNISA makes use of all-inclusive originality reports. This means everything needs to be in there. First and foremost, you need a title page. Now, a title page here would mean something like a cover page, but when you are busy with a study, let's say you are busy with your chapters, for example, you do not need to put on a formal cover page or title page. You can only put a little block at the beginning of the chapter that contains your name, your student number, the date and what you're uploading. For instance, this is chapter 2 final, for instance. That is just to include authorship recognition in the content of the submission, and it helps to verify authorship should any undue conflicts arise in future. Also, your bibliography or a reference list, or in a case where you might be required to use footnotes, all of that needs to be included in the document. This serves as confirmation for the research content within your document. So it's very important to have that. It makes for ease of reference, to cross-reference, and to assist you so that your supervisors can effectively guide you on your journey. Remember, this is a teaching tool. Okay, the intent is not there to try and catch you at plagiarism. This is not the idea why we use Turnitin. It is rather there to see in which areas your supervisors can support you and can encourage you and assist with relevant improvements. Note that your submissions are permanently stored. Again, this is done in order to protect your work. In other words, the copy that we receive will be protected within the account, and should somebody in future try and plagiarize from your work, Turnitin will give an alert to say that there is a match with already submitted work. The files that you are going to upload, we just have a few file requirements. These are very easy to meet in general. You do not have to double check on these. For instance, your maximum paper length is 400 pages. We do accept up to 800 pages. This is only relevant when you upload the complete dissertation or thesis. In those cases, then your submission might exceed 400 pages. If this does happen, we advise that you rather write an email to the UNISA Turnitin desk so that we can assist you with a submission. It is very important that you submit a complete dissertation or thesis at the end of the study so that you have the whole document with one single report that can be used for the examination process. You cannot upload in pieces. In other words, you cannot cut your thesis in half and just put in one part and then the next part. That would not work. Then the file type, we prefer that you upload in Microsoft Word. Preferably the .docx extension of MS Word. I do trust that all of you have access to Office 365 with all of these programs in there. You can also upload in PDF, but important here, it should not be a scanned or printed PDF. In other words, if you typed your work in MS Word, you need to save as a PDF document. So not print to PDF, but to save as a PDF document so that you still have a text version of your work that can also be uploaded. And then, of course, as I've mentioned in the previous slide, your file inclusions need to be a title page as well as a bibliography or the reference list, and you leave everything in there exactly in the manner that you would present to your supervisor or as it would go to an examiner with your declaration if that was required, an index, your images, graphs, and tables. Okay, so everything remains within that. Turnitin will read through that. Okay. When you upload, note that you have to go to the correct submission option. What we mean by this is, for instance, if you are going to submit your proposal, don't click on chapter 3 to upload your proposal. If you are going to upload your proposal, you need to click on proposal, and that's the space where you would upload your proposal. If you're going to upload chapter 3, don't select chapter 5. Okay, select chapter 3 where you're going to upload. And remember that your complete dissertation or thesis is only uploaded at the end of the study. When you've completed your research and you are ready for the examination process, at that point, you would use the option that states complete. Yeah. You can retrieve the files that you're going to upload from your computer directly, or if you've got a memory stick plugged in, those of you familiar with Dropbox or Google Drive, you can also use those to retrieve the document that you are going to upload. Now, currently, within the temporary space, the class where you are enrolled at the moment, when you submit there, it will also email you a digital receipt after a successful upload. It's just 3 lines just to confirm that your submission was received. And you are welcome to forward that specific email to your supervisor just to alert your supervisor that you have submitted and that the report is going to be generated. So that digital receipt will go to your My Life email. Okay, so it will not be sent anywhere else. It only goes to your My Life email. So do visit your My Life email box regularly. On this slide, I have an example of the student file upload order because you do get the opportunity to do a draft, a revision, and a final. So this opportunity you have for every chapter, as well as your proposals, and then at the end of the study also, there you do not really need the second and third upload options. Those are only utilized should your examiner revert back with a note to say that some revision needs to be made or corrections need to be done. Okay, so this is what you would currently see. When you are going to be moved to the new platform, which we trust will happen at the end of September, beginning of October, you will get an email. It will confirm the new space where you have been allocated, and it is going to look slightly different from the screen, but you will still have those three options. Okay, they will remain. Now, how do these options work? You would go to, for instance, let's say I'm now writing my proposal. So I will go to research proposal and I will upload my first draft that I've prepared, and that is ready for my supervisor. So I'm going to upload the proposal, and Turnitin will generate an originality report for me. Now I have the advantage. I can discuss my proposal with the originality findings with the supervisor. I can follow the advice and guidance received from my supervisor and apply that to my proposal. Now I rework my proposal, I revise my proposal, and I improve on the content, etc. And when I'm ready, I can come back and I can go to revision 1 and I can upload my revised version of my proposal. Turnitin will now generate a fresh report for me. Again, I have the opportunity to discuss with my supervisor. If the supervisor finds that maybe I still need to work on some portions of the text, maybe my paraphrasing needs improvement, or perhaps I've overutilized quotations, I can pay attention to those. I can rework it again, and then for the second revision, I can upload the final version of my work. Note here, you do not have to worry. Turnitin is going to recognize your authorship, provided that you only upload within the submission space provided and that you upload your work yourself. So this means you can do the draft with a revision as well as a final, and Turnitin is not going to reflect your previous draft as a conflict within the report. In other words, it's not going to appear as if you plagiarized yourself. Turnitin will recognize, but this is the author, this was the proposal, this is the version, this is the final version that the author submitted within this specific space. So you do not need to be worried about that. It will recognize your authorship. Okay, so what happens when you upload? Okay, when you upload, Turnitin receives your document and it takes it to a database with different repositories. And then it compares it to the content within those various repositories, and it will generate an originality report. Note, this is not a plagiarism report. Please do not call it a plagiarism report. Do not refer to it as a plagiarism report. This is not what Turnitin does. Turnitin checks for originality. It checks on the content of the submission, and it looks for original and non-original content. So it generates an originality report, or if you like, you can also call it a similarity report, but it is never a plagiarism report. The report is generated within 24 hours. In other words, if you uploaded your proposal, you don't have to sit and wait there. You upload your proposal, it takes less than 2 minutes, and you close. And then you go back the next day to view the originality report. It doesn't usually take up to 24 hours, but 24 hours is the official turnaround time. It is an extensive database with billions of pages of content and submissions hosted within that database. We have 4 different repositories. The first one, periodicals, this is actually quite a loose term, but it is to cover all sorts of publications that are hosted within the database. We have obviously the internet repository, both current and archived. We have the UNISA paper repository and then a student paper repository. Now, the student paper repository, this serves for submissions both nationally and internationally. I do not know if you are aware of this, but all of the major universities in South Africa do make use of Turnitin, as well as the majority of Africa. Turnitin is also used in thousands of institutions on the other continents as well. And all of those submissions are hosted within the student paper repository, and therefore that is the database that is utilized where the content is matched against, or where it searches to find the specific matches. Okay, what does the report entail? What does it look like? What is the report going to highlight? The report is going to highlight all non-original content. So in other words, if it finds a match in the database, then it's not original. Okay, this will include things like copied text from other sources. Obviously, if there is copied content, then that would be matched. But the use of discipline-related terminology might also be highlighted. Names and titles that you use. You can find that the direct quotes included can be highlighted, bibliographies or citations. Everything which is not original would be highlighted. Therefore, the proper analysis is required from your lecturer or your supervisor to identify plagiarism if it is present in the document. It doesn't mean that when something is highlighted that it is plagiarized. Okay, it simply means that it is not original, and you are not required to change every single thing which is highlighted. For instance, if names and titles are highlighted, can you change those? No, you cannot change those. You have to use them as they are. You need to provide a true reflection of the information. So those cannot be changed. But as I said, it needs to be analyzed by your supervisor, and you need to discuss the findings of the report with your supervisor. Now, know the difference. Understand how non-originality differs from plagiarism. The best way that I can explain this is, I trust my colleague doesn't mind, that I would use him as an example. So for argument's sake, let's say Tony is presenting a paper at a conference and he makes a statement during his presentation, which I find most profound, and I want to use it in my own work because it speaks to the research that I am doing. Can I do that? Yes, of course I can do that. I can take his words, I can put it into my own work, and I can quote it, and I can acknowledge it. This was said by Dr. Tony Machila. So I can do that. What will happen if my work goes through Turnitin? Turnitin will highlight that specific statement. Why? Because it's not original. Is that true? Yes, of course it's true. I didn't make the statement. Tony did. Okay, but did I plagiarize? No. Remember, I quoted and I acknowledged the person who made that statement. Now, what would be the difference? Let's say I took that statement and I included it in my own work. I did not give any accreditation to Tony. I did not acknowledge that he made that statement. And I'm simply writing it into my own work, and I am pretending that I am making that statement. What is going to happen in Turnitin? If that portion of text is checked in Turnitin, it will again highlight the sentence. Why? Because it is not original. Is that true? Yes, it's true. It's not my own words. But did I plagiarize? Yes, I did. I took that information and I pretended that that was my own. So in both instances, that sentence used was not original, but it's only in one instance that it was seen as plagiarism. So this is just a very simplistic way to explain this to you. Therefore, you need to discuss the findings of the originality report with your supervisor, because there are certain circumstances or conditions where it is expected that you would use a direct quote, or where you would need to use a definition. And then the fact that it is highlighted provides confirmation of the proper use of that specific information. So it is not necessarily bad if it is highlighted. Also, on your originality report, there is going to be a percentage, and this percentage is called a similarity index. Okay. Again, very important. This is not a plagiarism percentage. Please do not call it a plagiarism percentage. It is a similarity index, and it only tells you how much from the content of specific submission is not original. Okay, it doesn't say how much is plagiarized. Plagiarism, again, if it is present in the document, can only be identified through proper analysis. Okay, so keep that in mind. Okay, this is the current view that you will receive when you open an originality report in the temporary class where you are hosted at this point in time. Okay. On the left, you are going to see the content of the submission made. You will see different portions of text highlighted in various colors, and they will be marked with little numbers. These are then aligned with the source matches listed in the column on the right-hand side. At the top, there would be a similarity index, and then it is going to provide a breakdown in the column. And these are the different sources found in the database with matching content to the submission that can be seen on the left-hand side. The color coding is there for ease of reference. In other words, it doesn't mean if it's red that it's bad, or if it is green that it is good. Okay, it is simply there to make it easier for you to match up the sources and the text. On the left-hand side, we can see there I've got a sentence highlighted in red, marked with a little number 1. And on the right-hand side, I've got number 1, which is in red, and it gives me an individual percentage that applies to that specific source. My number 2, that is highlighted in pink, marked with a little number 2, and that means it matches source number 2 on the right-hand side, also with an individual percentage. There you can see the individual percentage applied is 14%. Now, how this works is Turnitin takes the content to the database, it finds the matching text, and then it would list all of the various sources in the column on the right-hand side. Number 1 is always the highest match. In other words, the one with the most matching content. In this instance, it tells me that 17% of the content of this submission matches source number 1, which is in this case, in my example, it is Wikipedia. And I trust that all M&D students know that Wikipedia is not an academic source. I've just used this as an example. My number 2 here is also from an internet site, and this is from National Geographic. So in other words, 14% from the content of my document matches number 2. And then those percentages will decrease until you get to less than 1%. Now, the question regarding the percentages is the fact that we provide you with a guideline for the individual matches. And the guideline that you have there is 5%. In other words, my number 1, which is 17%, is way above 5%. Okay, so my guide is 5. So I would immediately know that, listen, I used too much, or I relied heavily on one specific source. Even if I quoted, I cannot overutilize one specific source. So obviously I need to pay attention to that one. Even my number 2, 14%, this is way above the guideline of 5%. Now you might think that, wow, 5%, that is a wide guideline. Yes, it is. It is a very wide guideline, but that accommodates your use of discipline-related terminology. It accommodates for names and titles that might be found, or short quotes within the document, even just general speech, common expressions that you might use in the content of the work. So that is your guideline, and it is set at 5%. We refer to that as something called academic grace, in the sense that you are developing researchers. Okay, so you can use from another source information that is already in existence. However, you still need to acknowledge, you still need to give due credit to the source being used, but that should be limited to less than 5%. That assists with copyright issues as well. Various publications have different copyrights, but usually in a developing space, in a learning space, you can use up to 5%, but I would advise, especially at doctorate level, that you rather look at using 2%, because you are expected to bring your own voice to the research, okay, your own interpretation. At master's level, you need to demonstrate that you can synthesize the information, that you can confirm your knowledge and understanding of that specific field and that space. So your focus would be rather lower than closer to 5%, and it will be influenced by your topic. Again, discuss with your supervisor of exactly what is expected. Okay, follow the instructions provided, and then obviously the subject field would be taken into consideration as well in relation also to the topic, your research title that you are working for. So this is how it compiles the report, and that is how you read the report. And of course, remember that it doesn't mean that every single thing that is highlighted needs to be reworked or changed. Okay, there are certain conditions where a certain percentage of matching text may be allowed. Okay, so you have to refer to your information that you received, any communication that you received in this regard from your department or from your supervisor. Follow that and use that information so that you can deliver original work. And of course, the burning question. I believe that everybody was wondering why I kept referring to the individual matches rather than the similarity index. There is a definite reason for that, and that is because our focus is not on the similarity index. Okay. Remember the very first slide where we said that UNISA does not tolerate plagiarism. That means it doesn't matter what your similarity index is. The question we ask is blatant plagiarism present within that document? So if plagiarism is found in the document, it is going to be unacceptable. Okay, it doesn't matter what the percentage is. How does this work in a practical space? Let's say the submission received has a similarity index of 10%, and that report is analyzed, but within that report, blatant plagiarism is found. Let's say a whole page was copied from another source. That is going to be unacceptable. It doesn't matter that the percentage is just 10%. Or you could have another submission where the similarity index is perhaps 20%. But when the content is being analyzed, there is no portion of text which was blatantly plagiarized. Quotes were used sparingly, they were short, names and titles have been picked up proper, citation was done, etc., and it was properly analyzed. And then it can be that 20% is acceptable. Okay, so it doesn't matter really what the percentage is. The question is, does the document contain plagiarism? Because we are expecting originality. We are expecting to hear the author's voice within that specific submission. So therefore, there is no acceptable percentage. The only guideline that we can give you in this regard is the 5% for individual matches. And what that means is, obviously, if your individual matches are less than 5%, it will by default decrease your overall similarity index. Your focus is never to try and reduce the index. Your focus should be on delivering original work. Again, by default, that would reduce the percentage. Okay, so you need to paraphrase. You need to paraphrase in your own words. You cannot also use paraphrased material from other sources, because then you would need to reference those and you need to acknowledge those. So again, that would not be your own voice coming forward. Okay, use quotes sparingly. Okay, remember, your supervisor is looking for your voice, your understanding, your interpretation of the research done. Because your supervisor can also visit the library. Your supervisor can also search the internet to retrieve the information. It is not expected for you to do a repeat of existing information within the content. So do use your quotes sparingly. And then, of course, when in doubt, cite your sources. Always keep that in mind. Then lastly, regarding content support, know who your personal librarian is. Okay, know which librarian assists your specific college and can help you with research materials. They can direct you to the LibGuides page at the UNISA library. They can direct you to sources on research ethics, on integrity, on the referencing styles, etc. I want to go so far as to say that Turnitin and your personal librarian at UNISA, these two together are your best friends for the time of study at UNISA until you reach completion of your research and you are ready to submit for examination. Because both of these, the library support you on content support, etc., and then on the Turnitin, that provides a tool where you can communicate with your supervisor and would highlight areas where you can improve on and where you need to give more attention and to help you that you can bring your own voice forward. You can also visit the plagiarism.org site. Note that this is an international site. They do have a number of easy to read articles on preventing plagiarism when writing. You'd be surprised how easy it is to step into the trap of plagiarism without realizing it. So the more knowledge you have, the better equipped you are to deliver original work. So this site does give advice, etc., but it is an international site, so there might be additional requirements from the UNISA side that are expected. So make sure that you are aware of those as well when doing your work. Then for technical support, your MyLife email account needs to be active. Okay, you cannot communicate with the institution without that. Definitely not regarding Turnitin. If you have any concerns, please contact the MyLife help at unisa.ac.za desk for assistance so that your MyLife email account is fully operational. Should you have any questions regarding the Turnitin, first consult the FAQ list, because then you can have an immediate answer. It doesn't matter what time of day you are working on your research or you are doing Turnitin. Those 28 questions cover 99% of the questions that you might have regarding the Turnitin itself. Please note that Turnitin cannot assist you with academic content. Okay, we can only assist you from a technical perspective. For instance, your access within the class, your profile being live, or when something's submitted, or if a report did not generate. In such an instance, you can contact us at the Turnitin desk, turnitin@unisa.ac.za. And that has brought me to the end of the presentation. Thank you very much for sitting down this morning to learn about Turnitin.